Hi, here's a special little story called The Frog Prince. One fine evening, a young princess went into a wood and sat down near a cool spring of water. She had a golden ball in her hand, which was her favorite plaything, and she amused herself by tossing it in the air and catching it. After a time, she threw it up so high that when she stretched out her hand to catch it, the ball bounded away and rolled along the ground till at last it fell into a spring. The princess looked into the spring, but it was so deep that she could not see the bottom of it. Then she began to lament her loss and said, "Oh dear, if I could only get my ball again! I would give all my fine clothes and jewels and everything that I have in the world." While she was speaking, a frog put its head out of the water and said, "Princess, why are you weeping so bitterly?" "Alas," she said, "what can you do for me? My golden ball has fallen into this spring." The frog said, "I don't want your pearls and jewels and fine clothes. But if you will love me and let me live with you and eat from your little golden plate and sleep upon your little bed, I will bring you your ball." Oh dear, can you imagine sleeping with a frog and letting a frog eat out of your dish? "What nonsense this silly frog is talking," thought the princess. "He can never get out of the spring. However, he may be able to get my ball for me, so I will promise what he asks." And she was not being very truthful. She said to the frog, "Well, if you will bring me my ball, I promise to do all that you have asked me to do." Then the frog put his head down and dived deep under the water, and after a little while came up again with the ball in its mouth and threw it on the ground. As soon as the young princess saw her ball, she ran to pick it up and was so happy to have it in her hand again that she never thought about the frog but ran home, and she ran as fast as she could. The frog called to her, "Wait, wait! Take me with you, just like you promised." But she didn't stop to hear one single word the frog was saying. The next day, just as the princess sat down to dinner, she heard a strange noise, tap, 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 as if somebody were coming up the marble staircase. Soon afterward, something knocked gently at the door and said, "Open the door, my dear princess. Open the door to thy true love here, and mind the words that you and I said, by the fountain cool in the greenwood shade." Then the princess ran to the door and opened it, and guess what she saw? There was the frog whom she had quite forgotten. She was terribly frightened, and shutting the door as fast as she could, came back to her seat. The king, her father, asked what had frightened her. "There is a nasty frog at the door. He's all green and slimy, and he got my ball out of the spring this morning. I promised him that I would let him live with me here, thinking that he could never get out of the spring. But there he is at the door and wants to come in." While she was speaking, the frog knocked at the door and said, "Open the door, my dear princess. Open the door to thy love, true love here, and mind the words that thou and I said by the fountain cool in the greenwood shade." The king said to the young princess, "Since you have made a promise, you have to keep it. Go and let the frog in." She did so, and the frog hopped into the room and came up close to the table. "Please put me on the chair," said the frog to the princess, and he said it very politely. "Let me sit next to you." As soon as she had done this, the frog said, "Put your plate a little closer to me so that I could eat out of it." This she did, and when he had eaten as much as he could, he said, "Now I'm tired." Boy, that must have been a funny frog, because I thought frogs liked eating flies. This one, he liked eating carrots and chicken nuggets and all kinds of stuff that the princess had on her plate. "Carry me upstairs and put me in your little bed." And the princess took him up in her hand and put him upon the pillow of her own little bed, where she slept all night long. As soon as it was light, he jumped up, hopped downstairs, and went out of the house. "Now," thought the princess, "he's gone, and I won't have to bother with him anymore." But she was really mistaken, for when night came again, she heard the same little tapping at the door, and when she opened it, the frog came in and slept on her pillow as before, till it became morning. The third night he did the same, but when the princess awoke the following morning, she was astonished to see that instead of the frog, there was a handsome prince standing at the head of her bed, looking at her. He told her that he had been changed into a frog, in which form he had to remain till some princess took him out of the spring, let him sleep upon her bed for 3 nights. "You," said the prince, "have broken this spell, and now I have nothing to wish for but that you would go with me to my father's kingdom, where I will marry you and love you as long as you live." The young princess was not long in giving her consent, and as they spoke, a splendid carriage came up, drawn by 8 beautiful horses in golden harnesses. Then all set out full of joy for the prince's kingdom, where they arrived safely and lived happily ever after for a long, long time. Well, one thing we can learn from this story is that if we make promises, we should keep them. That's what God tells us to do. Love you.